Victoria just became the last place Bikie gangs want to operate. After years of being called the Switzerland of Australia for organized crime, the state just passed laws so harsh that gang members could face 3 years in prison just for being seen together. But here's what nobody's talking about. Victoria's Bikie population exploded by 75% while these laws were being debated, from 1,200 members in 2013 to over 2,112 by 2020. And now, with 26 recognized outlaw motorcycle gangs controlling a $60 billion criminal empire, the real war is just beginning. Victoria has a Bikie problem, and it's been festering for over a decade, while states like Queensland and New South Wales crack down hard on outlaw motorcycle gangs. Victoria became the safe haven, the refuge, the place where rebels, Comancheros, Bandidos, and Hells Angels could set up shop without constantly looking over their shoulders. But in late 2024, everything changed. The Victorian Parliament passed the Criminal Organisations Control Amendment Act 2024, legislation that police are calling some of the toughest anti-gang laws in Australian history. These aren't just tweaks to existing regulations. This is a complete overhaul that gives Victoria police unprecedented power to dismantle Bikie networks from the inside out. The question isn't whether these laws will impact organized crime. The question is whether they've come too late. Victoria's Bikie boom. In 2013, Victoria Police documented approximately 1,200 outlaw motorcycle gang members operating across the state. By 2020, that number had surged to 2,112. That's a 75% increase in just 7 years. To put that in perspective, while police were trying to figure out how to control Bikie gangs, the gangs were recruiting faster than ever before. Today, 26 individual outlaw motorcycle gangs operate in Victoria, with around 2,000 members and associates. The rebels alone have approximately 2,000 members nationwide, making them Australia's largest Bikie gang. In Victoria, they're joined by the Comancheros, Bandidos, Hells Angels, Mongols, and over 20 other clubs, each with their own territory, their own criminal enterprises, and their own violent history. Minister for Police Anthony Carbines didn't mince words during parliamentary debates. He stated that Victoria has become the Switzerland of the country when it comes to being neutral territory where outlaw Bikies feel safe to operate. But why Victoria? The answer is simple: weak laws and tough competition elsewhere. When Queensland introduced its Hardline Criminal Law Amendment Act in 2013, targeting Bikie gangs with severe restrictions, members fled. When South Australia cracked down, they moved. When New South Wales ramped up enforcement, Victoria became the destination of choice. Victoria Police identified something else disturbing. These Bikie gangs weren't just expanding their membership, they were diversifying their criminal operations. Links between Bikie gangs and other organized criminal groups showed consistent patterns. Attacks on tobacco stores, fraud activities, drug trafficking, firearms smuggling, and violence for hire. The Australian Institute of Criminology estimates that serious and organized crime costs Australians up to $60 billion each year. That's $60 billion that could fund hospitals, schools, and emergency services. Instead, it's lining the pockets of criminal networks where Bikie gangs play a starring role. And the violence? It's escalating. From the infamous Milpera massacre in 1984, where 7 people died in a shootout between Comancheros and Bandidos, to the 2009 Sydney airport brawl where Hells Angels and Comancheros beat a man to death in front of horrified travelers, Bikie violence has always been brutal and public. But in Victoria, something shifted. The gangs got smarter. The failed laws. Here's the part that should make every Victorian angry. Victoria already had anti-gang laws. In 2015, the state introduced the Criminal Organisations Control Amendment Act, promising to stop Bikie gangs in their tracks. The legislation created unlawful association orders that would prevent convicted criminals from repeatedly meeting with other gang members. Attorney General Martin Pakula announced these laws with confidence, stating they would give police the powers needed to disrupt and dismantle criminal gangs. Maximum penalties included 3 years imprisonment and fines exceeding $54,000. There was just one problem: the laws were never used. A review conducted in 2021 revealed a stunning truth. In over 5 years since their introduction, not a single unlawful association order had been issued. Zero. The laws sat on the books, collecting dust, while Bikie gang membership grew by 75%. Compare this to New South Wales. Under similar legislation, NS Police issued 8,556 warnings to 2,412 people within just 4 years. The laws worked because they were actually enforced. Shadow Attorney General Michael O'Brien summed up the failure bluntly during parliamentary debate. Victoria has become Disneyland for Bikies. We have become the Switzerland of the South for outlaw motorcycle gangs, because this government failed in 2015 and then failed in 2018 to get the law right. The government tried again in 2018 with amendments lowering the age for receiving association notices from 18 to 14 years old. That legislation also went nowhere. Why didn't these laws work? Legal experts and police pointed to several issues. The threshold for issuing orders was too high, the legal processes were too complex, and crucially, police lacked the oversight and accountability mechanisms to make the scheme functional. Meanwhile, Bikie gangs took full advantage. They recruited openly, expanded their operations, and solidified their control over lucrative criminal enterprises, particularly in Victoria's illicit tobacco market. The new laws explained. In August 2024, the Victorian government introduced the Criminal Organisations Control Amendment Bill 2024. This time, they meant business. The legislation passed Parliament later that year and is set to come into effect in 2025. So, what's different this time? First, lowered thresholds. The threshold for issuing unlawful association notices has been dramatically lowered. Police can now issue these notices more easily and in a wider range of circumstances. This means gang members don't need multiple convictions or proven leadership roles. Simply being identified as part of a criminal network can trigger restrictions. Breaching an unlawful association notice carries up to 3 years imprisonment. Second, serious crime prevention orders. The new SCPO scheme replaces the old, ineffective declaration and control order system. The Chief Commissioner of Police can now apply to a court to impose broad conditions on individuals who have participated in serious criminal activity or are likely to assist others in such behavior. These orders can prohibit a person from leaving Victoria, possessing firearms, carrying certain amounts of cash, entering specific locations, or using particular technologies. Essentially, it puts high-risk individuals under a microscope. Third, ban on gang colors. This is the part that's grabbing headlines. Outlaw motorcycle gang members wear their colors, patches, logos, insignia, as badges of honor. They intimidate the public, recruit new members, and assert territorial control through visual displays. Under the new laws, displaying gang insignia in public is now illegal. That means no wearing patches on jackets, no flying club flags, no displaying logos on vehicles. Police can confiscate these items on site. Fourth, worksite bans. Members of specified organized crime groups are now banned from entering Victorian government worksites. This targets the construction industry specifically, where Bikie gang infiltration has been a persistent problem. The federal government is running parallel operations to stamp out organized crime influence in construction, and Victoria's laws complement that effort. Fifth, IBAC oversight. Here's the accountability measure that was missing from previous legislation. The Independent Broad-Based Anti-Corruption Commission now has new responsibilities to monitor, oversee, and report on how these laws are used. This prevents police overreach while ensuring the laws are actually enforced. Attorney General Jacqueline Symes made the government's position clear. Organized crime and thuggish behavior has no place in Victoria. We're making that clear with some of the toughest laws in the country. Minister for Police, Anthony Carbines, added, organized crime groups and Bikie gangs are on notice. We won't stand for intimidation, and neither will Victoria Police, who won't hesitate to use these new laws to keep Victorians safe. What this means for Bikie gangs. So what happens now? How will Australia's Bikie gangs respond to Victoria finally getting tough? History gives us some clues. When other states introduced similar laws, Bikie gangs adapted in predictable ways. Strategy 1. Migration. When Queensland's laws became unbearable, gangs moved to Victoria. Now that Victoria is closing the door, where do they go? Tasmania and the ACT don't have control order schemes, but they also lack the criminal infrastructure and markets that make Victoria attractive. More likely, gangs will try to consolidate power in states where they already have a foothold, leading to increased turf wars. Strategy 2. Going underground. The ban on colors might seem symbolic, but it's actually strategic. Gang colors serve multiple purposes: intimidation, recruitment, and solidarity. Without them, gangs lose visible presence, but they don't disappear. They just operate more covertly. Smart gang leaders will pivot to what Australian criminologists call Nike Bikies, younger members more interested in profit than tradition. These members don't care about patches or brotherhood. They care about money, and they're harder to identify without the visual cues. Strategy 3. Legal challenges. Bikie gangs have successfully challenged anti-association laws before. In 2010, the Hells Angels won a high court case that declared New South Wales's initial anti-gang legislation invalid on constitutional grounds. Victoria's laws were written with that case in mind, but constitutional challenges are almost guaranteed. Strategy 4. Proxy operations. One disturbing trend identified by Australian Institute of Criminology research shows that since 2010, a growing percentage of crime attributed to outlaw motorcycle gangs isn't committed by patched members. It's committed by associates, nominees, and recruits who have plausible deniability. Core members stay clean, directing operations from the shadows, while younger associates take the risks and face the consequences. The tobacco connection. There's one criminal enterprise driving much of Victoria's Bikie violence right now: illicit tobacco. Victoria Police identified consistent links between Bikie gangs and attacks on tobacco stores. In October 2024, at least 28 businesses in Melbourne selling illegal tobacco products were targeted by arsonists within just 7 months. Fire bombings, shootings, and violent extortion have become routine. Why tobacco? The profit margins are enormous. With Australia's high tobacco taxes, the illicit market is worth billions. Organized crime syndicates, often with bikie gang involvement, import untaxed cigarettes, manufacture counterfeit products, and distribute through networks of seemingly legitimate stores. One syndicate investigated by Victoria Police's Viper and Lunar task forces earned over $30 million in just 12 months selling illicit tobacco. When police finally moved in October 2024, they executed 27 search warrants, seized a Lamborghini, a Range Rover, 600,000 illegal cigarette sticks, and charged 8 individuals with Commonwealth offenses for directing an organized crime syndicate. The violence surrounding this trade isn't just about money, it's about territory, control, and sending messages. Victoria's new anti-gang laws represent a turning point. After years of inaction, failed legislation, and watching Bikie membership surge by 75%, the state is finally taking decisive action. But laws are only as effective as their enforcement. The real test comes in 2025 when these provisions take effect. Will police use their new powers? Will the courts uphold unlawful association orders? Will BAC provide genuine oversight? And most importantly, will Bikie gangs finally leave Victoria, or will they adapt, evolve, and continue operating in the shadows? One thing is certain: the era of Victoria as a safe haven for organized crime is over. What replaces it remains to be seen.